I believe there are many dimensions that people are even unaware of. Some people say there's five, some people say there's, eight, some people say there's endless. I believe in endless dimensions. I believe we're doing different things at different times. We are a soul. We limit ourselves. We have these limiting beliefs that, I'm here in this body, therefore this is where I am and nowhere else. And that's not a truth. Our soul is expansive and it expands beyond the infinite.
Hi, love. This is Orion's World, previously known as Stellar Life Podcast. I'm Orion, transformational coach, hypnotherapy speaker, and a woman who turned deep pain into wild possibility. I overcame trauma, poverty, abuse, depression, infertility. Doctors gave me 5% chance of conceiving. But I rewrote my story. I created a new one, and the life they said was impossible. Now I travel the world. I'm married to the love of my life, and I am a mom to an amazing little boy. I'm also the founder of Orion's Method, where you connect within, reclaim your power, and manifest your dreams. Welcome to my world, Orion's World. We go deep, we get real, and we rise. This isn't just a podcast, it's an activation. Let's go. Hi, this is Orion. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching the show. You're in for a treat. Today's show is fascinating with a very fascinating guest. It was so lovely talking to her. She's just comes from a place of love and care, and it really comes through. I am joined with Susan Grau. She's an internationally recognized intuitive medium and author with over 30 years of experience. After experiencing her own near-death experience at age 4, Susan dedicated her life to bridging the gap between worlds. She holds a doctorate of divinity, specializing in near-death experiences, studying under Dr. Raymond Moody, the founder of NDE Research. Susan's remarkable work has been featured in Lifetime, Goop, and The Hollywood Reporter. As a certified life coach, hypnotherapist, and Reiki master, she combines spiritual gifts with practical healing approaches. In today's extraordinary conversation, we explore 3 fascinating topics. First, Susan shared profound insights about her near-death experiences and what happened when we cross over. Then we dive into the mysteries of the spirit world and how those who've passed continue to connect with us. Finally, Susan offers compassionate guidance for healing from grief, drawing from both her professional and personal life. So get ready for a mind-expanding journey that might just transform how you view life and death. And now, without further ado, on to the show. Hey, Susan, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Me too. Maybe you can describe what you do today and what led you to that path.
Okay. I'm an intuitive medium, and that means I work with spirits on the other side that have crossed. And I work with grief. I'm a grief therapist and addiction therapist, and I have my doctorate. I work with children who have NDEs. So I'm kind of it's an array of things. And the way that I became a medium is, I think I always saw spirits, even as a little girl. It's the only thing I remember about being 3 years old, but I was about 3 years old and I could see animals float when they would cross. And yeah, and it just was. I didn't think anything. I didn't think, oh my gosh, what's going on here? I didn't have any of those feelings. It just was.
Mm-hmm.
At 4.5 years old, tipping on 5, I got locked in an unplugged freezer in a garage. And from there, body, and I had an experience that's quite profound. And basically, when I came back from that, I could see spirits everywhere.
Wow. Was it overwhelming to see spirits everywhere?
Depending upon how they crossed, honestly, but I think as a little girl, at 4.5 years old, I thought they were the boogeyman. So I would just cover my head and say, go away, go away. I mean, I didn't connect those dots that experience had to do with this experience here. So I felt, pretty lonely. But I will tell you that my family had some resemblance of this gift. I mean, they could see things differently, but yeah. So I wasn't all alone.
But when did you come to term with that and would come to term with your gift and started consciously communicating with them?
Well, I don't think I had a choice. I don't think I had a conscious communication. It just was.
Mm.
And it was abnormally normal, and I knew that. And I remember, I mean, they would just wake me all of my life. And I remember being, I think I was 18, 19 maybe, and my Nana died, and she came to me loud and clear. And I was wide awake, and I always am. And when she did, I freaked out by it. It was like, wow, what is this? What's going on? And so I called UCLA Medical Center, was doing a study on ESP, extrasensory perception. And I asked them, I saw it in the newspaper, and I
Mhm.
asked them, what's going on with me? What's happening? What is this? And they said, you sound like a medium. And I said, what's that? And they said, those are people who talk to the dead. Well, first of all, I didn't believe in dead. And so that freaked me out. But also I went and hung up the phone, and I didn't have another conversation about it for quite some time. What I ended up doing was going into grief and addiction counseling.
Mhm.
And that was my way of kind of connecting in, but not letting people know. Because in my day, you didn't do those things.
So you would
They
sit
would have
in the
taken.
room with a patient, a client, and you could see you could see the answer, the mother, the father, and you just talk to them as if they're not there. Wow.
Yeah, but I do that now. And then I would say things like, oh, I think your PTSD comes from, or we didn't use the word PTSD at the time, but just an example. Your PTSD comes from seeing your grandmother die from a stroke and trying to revive her. And they'd say, I didn't tell you that.
Mm.
And I would back up. I would go, I'm sure you did. I'm sure. No, I didn't. Because I was afraid they'd take my license. Because
Ooh.
again, this is back in, the 70s. And I just knew they would take my license. So I wasn't going to have anything to do with it. But it kept having things to do with me. And I didn't really have an option.
Mm.
And then as time went on, I think probably, 20 years ago, I started to really accept it, maybe 30. And then, no, but more like 20. And then I really believe that, when Facebook came out, I decided to announce it. And I remember pressing the button, and I was like, oh my God, and just started sobbing. But it wasn't a sob of what are people going to think? It was a relief.
Oh yeah.
So I was crying because I was relieved that I got it out. And, I typed in, I'm a medium and I see people on the other side. And I had this whole thing I typed out. And if you don't want to be my family and friend, that's okay, and really it wasn't, but that's what I did so that I could have freedom to be who I was. And
And
from then on, it was just really loud.
how did people react to that back in the days?
Surprisingly, many of them said, did you think we didn't know? There were a few who went, she's in that case, and still do. I mean, even in my family, there are a few that, they think I'm nutty, which I'm pretty grounded. So it's
Mm.
hard to see that, as being a thought pattern, but it is what it is.
Do you still see spirits everywhere all the time,
Um,
or can you like disconnect?
I can disconnect. So I call it a dial that I turn up and down. So when
Mm.
I want it up, it's a feeling that goes through my body. Like I consciously become aware that there's something in the room, and I'll either turn it up or I'll turn it down.
Mm.
And that way I can actually be in my intellect because, I'm analytical. I'm a therapist, right? I'm analytical. So, unfortunately, that doesn't go well with spiritual communication, but it's my gift because I can turn it down and get into my analytical side. Like I'm on my analytical side right now having a conversation. I'm not sitting in spirit energy.
Mm-hmm. Wow. I wonder what spirit could have told us about this interview.
I know that we weren't going to be on Riverside, maybe.
Uh,
Just today. Just
don't go
today.
on Riverside. Yeah, it was interesting. Sometimes I feel like people that are very powerful, sometimes there is some technical things with them.
Yeah,
I think like the energy is affecting the internet or the
it does.
connection. Yeah.
It does, and it'll do it on Zoom too, but I'm always like, please bless me and not let that happen.
You actually,
I've had
you
Zoom
know
do
what I
some.
do sometimes when like I have an interview and a bad connection, I kind of imagine energies coming together and I actually do this with my fingers. I bring my fingers together when the guest is not seen and the internet is coming back. It's kind of weird. I was like,
You
okay,
know, it's
let's
not
go.
weird.
It's
You're
not.
setting an intention energetically,
Yeah, I'm just like, okay,
and
connect. Okay, connect. This
yeah,
is important. Connect.
yeah, you're creating an outcome with your energy. Yeah, I
Mhm.
mean, we do that all the time. That's part of what we do.
Can anyone be a medium and an intuitive?
I believe that everyone has the ability. I just think some aren't meant to use it in this life journey.
Mm,
So they may see a loved one when they pass and they think it's the most miraculous thing. They came to me in my dream and but they don't go further with it,
mm-hmm,
is what I mean by that. So I think everyone has the ability. And as far as intuitive, yes, you have to master that skill. Intuition is something that you can't just, I'm going to intuitively understand everything I'm feeling. You have to really step into it and master it in order for it to be productive for you and work out there in the world.
mm-hmm,
And once you start mastering it, which is just practice, right, with anything, the more you practice, the more you're mastering it. And so, for me, it was really stepping into it and saying, what does my intuition tell me? And then noticing the difference of when I was wrong or inaccurate and when I was right and what that felt like.
mm-hmm.
And then I just kept going and going and going. My intuition was always very strong. I just didn't listen to it. I still did all the things every other human did. I didn't want to listen to it, but getting older, I made the decision. I need to listen to it and really step into that, and so I did.
Mm. Yeah, I feel like I'm more connected to my intuition these days more than ever. Even with my clients, it's like things that I know, but I don't know how I know them. And and sometimes I sway like if I ask a yes or a no, I just sway. I know some people sway back and forth, or right and left. For me, it's more right and left to get the answers. But
Interesting.
I do get confused if I'm in a low vibration. Because sometimes when
Oh,
you don't feel great, that's exactly when you want the answer, but then you don't have clarity around that, right?
that's so true. Even in my work, if I go into a room and I've had a bad night, I didn't sleep, maybe somebody was rude on the freeway, whatever it is, and my mind's somewhere else, my vibration's lower. And I'll walk into the room and I note that, I'm not picking up everything I should. So I have to really concentrate on flipping that. And I mean, concentrate intuitively, not intellectually, on flipping that and just seating in my soul and where I'm at and being present in this moment. I
Mm-hmm.
have this little saying for myself, life is in session, be present. And if I'm present, then my intuition comes out strong again.
I love it. It's very assertive. It's very very strong. Life is in session. I like that. Be
Yeah,
present.
I like to be in control of it. I don't want it to control me because it used to when I was young, it used to control me,
Mm,
and I don't want it to do that. So I like to have my ability be under wraps basically. But I couldn't imagine going somewhere and having them just be everywhere again. I couldn't go through that anymore.
it's
What
true.
I do is like I'll be sitting eating dinner with my husband and I'll look across the room and I'll see something and I'll hear, my daughter's here eating, I'm behind her, and I'll note that and I'll hear, tell her I love her, tell her I'm here, and I'll actually say no. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to go up and walk up to your daughter and disrupt. I would not want someone to do that to me and remind me that my mother's gone while I'm
Mm,
eating dinner and having a nice time. And I say, no, that's not appropriate. And they go away.
wow. Wow, that's so when you see it, do you see it? Do you feel it? Do they
All of
just
it.
come to you or do you call them?
I use clear cognizance, which is a clear knowing, being cognizant of their being in the room. But I have all the clairs, so I can hear them, I sense them, I see them, I feel them. I have all of them.
As an adult, have you ever got scared of the information you got?
Oh my gosh, yes, I still do. Now, it's not scary information, but when you're sleeping and someone says, wake up, I just died, you go, what? Go away, go away. I still do that till this day. But then I go, okay, okay, wait a minute. What do you want to tell me? So I now am aware at all times that they're not there to hurt me. I've never had a bad spirit come to me to harm me. That has never happened. When I passed away, I felt angels with me, and I feel like they were there the whole time.
Nice. So do you think that spirits are everywhere? It's just that they live in a different dimension we cannot see? And how many dimensions are there, do you think? Or no?
I believe there are many dimensions that people are even unaware of. Some people say there's five, some people say there's, eight, some people say there's endless. I believe in endless dimensions. I believe we're doing different things at different times. We are a soul. We limit ourselves. We have these limiting beliefs that, I'm here in this body, therefore this is where I am and nowhere else. And that's not a truth. Our soul is expansive and it expands beyond the infinite.
Mm.
And so, my feeling when they come in, they're just right next to me. Maybe they're vibrating higher. I can feel that. They're vibrating very high. I think each dimension has its own vibrational energy. And that's why we're not stepping into it all day long. And I think sometimes we do. We have flashbacks or we have this moment where we go, I've been here before, those
Yeah,
kind of
deja vu.
things. Hmm.
Yeah, it's so
Hmm.
many deja vus. I feel like in the last couple of years, I'm actually developing some kind of an animal communication. And yeah, it's pretty cool. I
It's a
hear
very
things,
cool.
I see things. It's interesting. And you got lots of wolves around you.
I do.
There
I
is a
do. I
beautiful
love them.
painting, and there is a like a statue of two wolves. Um,
Hmm.
how did wolves show up in your life, and how do you communicate? Like, how are they coming in as a spirit animal?
Well, they showed up, I think when I passed, I always loved German Shepherds, even as a little girl, and they
Me
remind me of
too. I
wolves.
love German shepherds.
Yeah, they're my
Love them.
favorite. Of course, I don't have one because of hair, because they shed 24/7, and I'm really picky about that. But
Which one? You got
but
a
I
dog
love
behind
them.
you. What kind of dog is that?
That's a golden doodle. She
Oh,
doesn't
so
shed. She's a
cute.
golden.
So cute.
But it matters to me. The shedding is like really bad with German
Mm.
Shepherds. Like you're peeling it off of them and putting it in your hand. And that's not a good thing. But I had them most of my life. And I love them. And so I think, even as a little girl, I was never afraid of them. I always loved them and they never made me feel uncomfortable. So when I had my crossover, my NDE, I felt really strongly the energy of wolves around me. And I don't normally share that because it seems so woo-woo, to most people, but I did. I felt that. And I felt one come up to me and I call it a dog, but it wasn't. And, I remember this feeling of, oh, you belong to me. And I had a really hard time leaving them. And even when I do past life regression, under hypnosis, I'm always with wolves, always.
Mm.
So I have a very deep connection with them. I was sharing, I have a picture that a wolf is actually up in my face looking in my eyes. Then I have another picture where it's sitting down with its ears back looking at me and in a room with me. And it was the highlight of my journey, I think, just being in that presence because they see your soul.
Mm.
So do dogs, they see your soul. There's a chemical that happens with wolves and dogs, which is very interesting, but maybe other animals too, but definitely with wolves and dogs that it's a chemical inside your brain and their brain that changes and actually puts serotonin and dopamine in your brain when you look into their eyes.
Oh, and maybe that's
Yeah.
why I like dogs. Chemical reaction. It's not how cute they
Y-
are.
It's
Um,
both. It's both. I love them both ways. But yeah, I mean that reaction is pretty powerful.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
So how do you think working with spirits and connecting with spirits led you into grief counseling?
I think it was natural. So I started out with addiction counseling, and that was really powerful, but it ended a lot of times with grief.
Mm.
And so I wanted to learn about that, like what does that look like and how can I help people in that portion of it, not just with their addiction, but with the portion of going through the grief process of letting go of drugs or even losing their lives over it, or going back out and using. And then it led me into, helping people who had had the losses. So it kind of just unfolded for me. It
Mm,
was a perfect segue into being the medium that I was
mm.
because I was dealing with loss. And so it just came naturally from there.
Wow. So what are some things people need to know about grief, or can you ever be prepared for grief?
No, there's a grief called anticipatory grief, which means you're anticipating the loss of someone. Maybe they're sick, um, and you know they're going to leave, or even they might be addicted and you have the feeling they're going to leave. So there's this anticipatory grief, and that is even not, you are never prepared till it happens. And then sometimes you're not prepared then, but you accept that as part of the journey. I say this, and in all honesty, we contracted before we came here. We knew we were going to leave here.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't make it any easier for us here. But for
Yeah.
the spirit that left, they completely understand that. So they're not suffering or in pain. They understand that. And that's good to know when you have a loved one who's left. I have tremendous grief in my life. I have two brothers and a mother who died by suicide.
Oh my
I
gosh.
had um, just a tremendous amount of grief. I could go on a list, and that was meant, I guess, to be in my journey. But what it did is I'm more because of it, not in spite of it. I became more honest, I had more depth, and I wanted to help people. That was very important to me. And so I see a lot of suicide ideation, people who want to leave by that means, and
Mm-hmm.
also people who have lost people by suicide, because I understand in some form. We all grieve differently. Grief is singular. And that's the hard part for people to get their heads around, is that, how you might grieve the same mother that I might have, I might grieve differently.
Mm-hmm.
If we had the same mom, you might have a different relationship with her. So your grief is different. So we are all different in how we handle the loss. And so I never pretend to know exactly what someone else is feeling, but I do understand the grief process quite extensively
Mm-hmm.
from my own experience, but also from studying it. So I spend a lot of time remembering that grief is in charge, that
Mm.
it comes to you, you don't go to it. So you might be, walking through the grocery store and burst into tears and nothing's going on, but it just comes to you. It's in charge. And I let it be. When you step into grief, grief doesn't have the power of fear behind it then.
Mm.
When you put fear on the tag of anything, you're going to have a problem. More of a problem than if you just allow it. And when you allow it, it kind of, you roll through it in a different kind of way than fighting it and fearing it.
Mm.
Fear is extremely powerful. And people say to me, I don't know how to do this, Susan. And I say, but you do. You've been grieving since the moment you came out of the womb. You grieved coming out of the womb. You grieved not being attached to your mommy. You grieve when your mom took your blanket away. You grieve when she took your bottle away. You grieve when you have a boyfriend who leaves you. You grieve when nobody wants to be around you or you don't have friends. Grief is part of our process here. And when you remember that, you're able to step into that grief in a different form, that it's not foreign to you. We
Mm.
just think it is because it's so intensive.
Right. So for someone who recently or even not recently lost a loved one, and they want to understand more of their grief process, or how to handle their own emotions, what would you advise?
Well, dependent upon how they lost them.
Mm.
So if you lose a loved one to a major tragedy or a horrific event, it's going to affect you in a very different way than if you lose a loved one who has cancer or, dies by illness. Not that it's less intense to lose them, but the process is definitely more intense. What you have to go through and experience, and the goal is to not focus on how they died,
Mm.
but to focus on the fact that they're in the afterlife and how they lived. So that is what I try to do, is allow them to step into their grief, but then bring the focus back to how did they live their life? Were they happy? Did they love music? Were they joyful? Did they love swimming? We know what parts of them were in joy. And that helps a lot. Um, and we want their joy to go on forever, but that is not how it worked, unfortunately. And so what we tend to do as humans is focus on the tragic event, what they experienced. I'm here to tell people that most people do not experience that are leaving this planet, do not experience the terror that we do watching that happen.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say that. So, spirit has this great ability to pull us from our bodies. It's a projection outside of us. We deflect from what's happening to us, and spirit created that so that we didn't have to be in that moment. So they don't suffer the way that it looks like they're suffering, which
Mm-hmm.
is the blessing. It's called dissociation, and it's powerful. And what happens is they leave their bodies and they remain with the spirit world. They're not watching it, they're not experiencing it. And when that event's over, they go back into their bodies or they're passing over.
Mm-hmm.
And knowing that has always brought me peace because I have family members, again, that died by suicide. I have family members that died by murder, which is really hard for me to take in. My uncle was murdered, but yet I know that he dissociated from that event because they tell me that. So I trust that. And I dissociated from my event, of almost leaving the planet, forever.
Yeah.
So for me, that's a soothing knowledge. That is a truth. I don't say it to soothe. I don't speak lies to make people feel better, although I want them to. I want them to know the truth about the spirit world and about their loved ones and what's occurred and that they're safe. They're safe and they were safe even though they didn't seem safe because the spirit world will have it no other way. Consider coming back, remember. So say there's an event where there's, more than one person involved, like a car accident or something. The one that's coming back will remember the details, but the one that left does not.
Is there, like, let's say you have a relative that is going through something hard, like a disease, or like that, wow, this is might be the end, might not, we don't know. Do you have any advice on how to collect memories or talk to them or even prepare yourself or them for that transition?
I don't think there's a pre-preparation for grief. Again, unfortunately, it's when you are going through the actual loss, the physical loss, you realize that you're not really prepared for anything. It's
Some people
okay.
say, like, ask questions, take videos, ask them about their
Oh, I
childhood.
love
Yeah.
recordings. So one of the things we forget before anything is their voice.
Mm,
So I really suggest that, record their voice. Let them talk to you every day on a recorder.
mm,
My father did that, and it was extremely powerful for us. And he would talk about, oh, I'm going to leave. He had pancreatic cancer, and he would talk about, I'm going to leave, but I'm going to always be with you, and I love you. And we got to be in that energy anytime we wanted to. And he would talk about his memories with us and all those beautiful things. So, and I suggest that happens prior to, them getting really, really sick if it's a sickness, because then they're on medications. And so it sounds different. But I really encourage that. I encourage people to do memory books, where they journal. And even the people who are leaving to journal, it's very powerful. Lots of pictures prior to them being drugged to the point that, they look like they're sick.
mm,
um, so if for instance, if one of my family members got ill and I wasn't certain if they were going to leave or not, I would start doing more
mm.
because am uncertain and I'd want to have those memories in case. It's not that I'm thinking they're leaving for sure, but I want that memory. I want that, in the books, basically.
Wow, that's so powerful. And so when your dad left, did you contact him? Did he contact you or your uncle or any of those people you lost?
My uncle did. My mother, I was too much pain. My mother's suicide took me to my knees. I didn't think
Mm.
I'd ever survive it. And I did.
How
We
did you
always
survive
do.
that? Like, how did you heal yourself? What was that process?
Well, I remember literally physically being on my knees, rocking myself and reminding myself that spirit loved me more than anything. And I had my arms around myself. And I did that for probably an hour. And all of a sudden I felt a rush of love like
Mm.
I've never experienced. It was hypnotic in nature. And
Wow.
I was able to get off the floor. And till this day, it's only been, 15 years. And until this day, when that time comes around, a couple of weeks before, I notice I'm in that anticipatory grief and I don't even know it.
Mm,
And I'm acting different and I'm sensitive and take everything personally and I'm feeling all this energy that I don't understand. Our body has memory. And then I'll look at the calendar and go, oh, the day of, I don't really react. I kind of just go through that day because I've already had the experience, for the few weeks before.
mm. Oh my
So
God.
everyone is different, but that's really common.
Like logically, my logical mind understand what you're saying, that they're going to a beautiful place and they're not suffering anymore and they're whole and complete and all that. But the emotional human side cannot even come to term with something like this happening ever. How
I
can
know.
one heal from grief? Do we ever heal?
It pretty much changes the landscape of your journey and it joins with your journey. You
Mm,
don't, yes, you can heal, but healing doesn't mean gone.
mm,
Healing means that you can still smile and laugh and enjoy life and make have parties and be part of the world that you're in and do that with joy.
mm,
That's a healing process. But it doesn't mean that it's gone. And grief is never gone, no
mm.
more than tragedy and trauma is ever gone, but it becomes part of the landscape of your journey.
I get it. I kind of get it. I get it.
Yeah.
I mean, I had an experience where I was in a space of non-duality in the spirit realm, and it was just love, and and I noticed that love. But as soon as you go back from that awakened moment or moments, and into the human realm, you're back in duality, and you're back in like I cannot even wrap my head around losing a loved one. That's too hard.
It's too hard, yet we are prepared for it and agree to it before we come here. No one gets out of here without leaving.
I'm gonna live forever. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, but I understand that that doesn't make it any easier. It doesn't soothe it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's good for me to know that. Last night I was playing the piano and I don't play well, but I was playing the piano and I'm learning a song and I got up and I looked at the piano and I thought someday this piano won't be mine. And
Ooh.
it was a really weird feeling. And I thought all these things that mean so much to me, somebody's going to sell, somebody's going to give away, this house will not be mine, somebody else will be sitting in front of that television or a television or sitting outside by the pool. That it was really a weird feeling. And it rushed through me. And I said that to my husband because I'm going to be 66. And I don't know, there's something about getting
You
closer to
are
70
so
that,
beautiful, and you
oh,
you look so much younger.
thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
You're just a
But
hottie. Like that, you're like a very hot counselor.
thank you. Um, but I was freaking out a little bit inside. And then I went, oh, I agreed to that. This is just a partial moment. This is a moment in time. This is not, and I should be appreciating that because I'm closer to 70 now. And so, that people leave at any age, but we
Yeah.
know we're getting ready to go at some point when we're getting older, we're getting closer if we are going to have a long, full life. And this weird feeling came over me. It was almost a feeling of panic. And I don't panic because I'm really excited to, be in the afterlife. I don't want to go yet. I'm not ready, but I love
Yeah.
being able to sit down and play my piano and have all the tangible physical things. People say to me, I'm never coming back. And I go, you will miss some of the beautiful things that are here. You
Mm-hmm.
will, holding your baby for the first time, feeling it move in your body if you can carry one.
Mm.
If you're adopting that feeling of excitement, the piano, marriage and first time you ever fall in love, you'll miss those things and you'll want that tangibility. So you probably will come back and they just look at me, like that's kind of a scary thought with everything I've been through. For me, it's not. With everything I've been through, I would want it again.
How many lifetimes do you think each one of us went through? And how many
I
new
think it's
souls are coming to Earth?
I think it's infinite in both directions. So I believe we have infinite lifetimes, and we don't know how long we've been in this universal energy, is universal consciousness, but I think forever. Souls always are and always will be. And what's forever? It's infinite.
And so I did some past life regression myself, multiple. And I'm like, wow, I've been this and I've been that and I've been this and I've been that, and it's never ending. And then I'm like, I wonder, so many lifetimes, how can I heal all of this in this short lifetime? What's your advice?
You're not meant to heal all of it in this
No,
short
but
lifetime,
I'm overachiever.
but you're not, you're meant to experience, and experience, with experience comes healing, if you
Hmm.
choose that, but it is not the goal. The goal is to
What is the purpose?
experience
What's our goal here?
self-love.
Oh, I like that so
It's the
much.
hardest thing you'll ever do.
Yes, radical
Yeah.
self-love. Oh, I
Yes.
love that.
That's the sole purpose. And the reason, I can give you the reason. Love is the highest vibrational energy in existence.
Mm,
And spirits, the spirit that created us, has the highest vibrational energy. And we want to rejoin with that at the highest vibration possible. So, in every dimension, in every journey that we do, self-love is the actual bottom line of the soul path. The
mm.
life path is all the other things we do that create self-love, hopefully.
Yeah. How do you practice self-love?
I remind myself that I'm enough,
Mm.
and I can be very hard on myself. I'm a perfectionist. I like things to be a particular way, and it's not that I want anyone
Reminds
else
me
to
of
be that
somebody I know
way.
personally.
I don't need anybody else to be that way, but I'm very I put a lot of pressure on myself, especially in my work.
Mm,
I'm really hard on myself, and so I have to remind myself that it's okay not to do it perfectly, and that I'm going to fail sometimes, and that that's part of learning and growing. So I remind myself of that so I don't beat myself up. And and I just work on my soul expansion. So I'll say things like you're lovable, you're capable, you're worthy, you're enough, Susan.
mm.
And as long as your
And you're a hottie.
intention well, thank you. As long as your intention is a good intention, you're going to do good things. And I also do this for myself. When I start to fear leaving, or I didn't do it right, or I'm not enough, I tell myself life's in session, be present.
Oh my
And that
goodness.
means
I should
literally,
have this on my mirror. That's
yeah, stay
that.
where your feet are, literally. Where are
Mm,
your feet right now? Wherever they are, mine are, on a little cushion, and I'm on wood floor. And I remind myself of that. I stay where I am, because what happens when we project into what we should have, could have, or would have done, we are in fear base. And what you fear, you feed. What you feed, you perceive. And what you perceive becomes your reality. So we want to remove that fear base and stay right where we are. So when
mm.
I start to project of, oh, well, I did this, so that's going to happen. And this is going to, what if, the what if, um, I tell myself, where are your feet, Susan? Not today, Susan. Stay where your feet are. So
Oh,
that life's in session and I'm present with life. I don't always do it. I want to be honest. I try really hard, but I'm having a human experience, but I know to do it.
amazing. What are some of the most rewarding moments in your journey with helping people?
When they come in and their arms are crossed and they say things like, my wife brought me in here, or my husband brought me in here, but I don't believe in this stuff. I know my child or my loved one's gone forever. And I believe we don't turn into dirt. And they say all these things, and I'm watching them. And I just know the spirit world's going to go after them, right? In a loving way, and let them know they're wrong. And then when they're done with the reading, they flip into tears, joy, laughter, and they go, they're really here, aren't they, Susan? Like, you couldn't know that stuff. They're
Wow.
really here. And you see the powerful, the morphing, the metamorphosis of change. It's so powerful. It's so beautiful. And I'm so grateful for it, because I get to do that every day. And with people, and to see that shift, knowing that their loved one's not gone, is just enormous in beauty.
When you were more of a beginner, did you ever get affected by your clients or by the stories or by the trauma? How do you build this, or do you need to build some kind of a protection shield so you're not taking on other people's stuff?
I still work on it every day, but I really believe that the spirit world helps me forget. So there are certain things that I hear every day. People like to make mean comments about mediums. They're spirit vampires, they're grief vampires, all these other things. And it's really sad to me because if we are knowledgeable in grief, we're taking that on. And we're hearing the worst of the worst on a daily basis. And it is the hardest thing. I can tell you, it is so difficult. Next to self love, I think it's the other hardest thing we do on this planet.
Hmm.
And is to help someone grieve loss, right? I mean, it's so painful to watch them suffer.
Yeah.
And I see what's happened to their loved ones. And so what I do is I just ask the spirit world to help me forget as much as I can. And it stores somewhere in a little vault. And I know it's there if I have to pull from it, but not all of it. The really horrible parts don't come back to me, but there's these once in a while ones that I can't shake.
Mm.
And I'll come home and I'll just sit. The next day, I'll be exhausted from holding on to it and I'll cry and I'll release it by, crying and I'll talk about it, on my way home, I'll call a friend and, say I had this really difficult reading and I'm in the pain space and I don't know how to get out of it and I'll talk through it. But, I think what gets me the most is animals and children.
Mm.
When I go through, helping someone who has lost a child, it's extremely draining
Yeah, I can.
and you just don't shake it easily.
Right.
But I'm glad I'm there to help them move through it. And I remind myself of that. But I think the spirit world puts the shield around me for the most part, puts it in a little vault over here. I'm sure I have some PTSD from it. I have no doubt.
Mm.
I have it from my life journey. I think as part of having a human brain is to have some PTSD from the journey we experience. So,
Mm.
it's not anything like that's scary to me. I just know it's there and it helps me forget,
Mm.
and somebody will say, remember that reading you had that you told me about, blah, blah, blah. And I'll go, no, I don't.
Oh,
That's how it
that's
works
good.
for me.
That's
Yeah.
great.
And by the next day, if somebody calls me and says, do you remember the reading I had with you? I'll go, I don't even remember their name. Not that they weren't important to me, because they were so important that I needed to vault it.
Oh, wow. Incredible. Wow. Yeah, I can
Yeah.
see it. I really like you. Like even, in the beginning we had technical difficulties and you were so sweet. It just seems like you were genuinely come from a place of love and kindness. So what you're
Thank
doing in
you.
the world is so important and so beautiful. So thank
Thank
you for
you.
being you and thank you for doing all this incredible work in the world.
Thank
Um,
you.
what are your three top tips to living a stellar life?
Oh, I love that. Well, I think they should get my book, Infinite Life, Infinite Lessons. Honestly, it tells them those tips. It tells them how to connect in. I really believe that when we're connected to our souls, and the soul is the vine to the divine, which is enormously important to remember. So it's there to help you in every way. If you want to live a stellar life and you want to heal and you want to know who you are and you want to change things about yourself that you don't like or embrace the things you do, step into your soul. That's where the power lies because that's where the spirit world is talking to you
Mm.
and helping you in every way. So, I truly believe that we are people who need visual, we need audio, we need all those things to help us move through things. So reading, listening to podcasts, learning about other people's journey and the creation of their healing or their life. Those are the powerful things we can do to have a better life. When we stay in a cocoon, we are one and alone with the world, right? But when we raise our consciousness and join our consciousness with others, we become more valuable to ourselves and others. And so that is living a stellar life to me.
Beautiful. So where can people find you, get the book, and all the tips and all the...
The book is sold from Hay House. I'm actually writing a second book about healing those areas that we that bind us. But my book, Infinite Life, Infinite Lessons, is out. It has been out for about 9 months. It's with Hay House. They can buy it anywhere books are sold. It is extremely powerful for people who want to know where their loved ones are and learn about my journey and how I healed and what it's like in the spirit world and how to connect in and all of those learning intuition versus fear, all of those beautiful things that we need to know in order to grow and expand ourselves. It's phenomenal. I think spirit wrote it. It's helped so many people. I'm so grateful for it. And then going to susangrau.com for any kind of, learning about me and making appointments. And then Susan Grau Official on all social media. And I have a new Infinite Soul Sanctuary.
Hmm.
It's a subscriber site where I do all things spirit. And I come on once a month and I do readings and I teach about the spirit world and about how to like sound baths and things like that, how to center ourselves in this journey to have the self-love we need.
Oh, beautiful. Susan, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I loved your energy. This was really fun and I loved it. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, listeners. Remember to connect to your soul, join others and learn from them, get supported, and have a stellar life. This is Orion. Till next time.